30,000 years ago, Japan was not yet an island nation. Connected to Asia by land bridges, it awaited its first human inhabitants.
Coastlands. The Jomon period began around 14,000 BCE. These people created some of the world's oldest cultures. Around 300 BCE, the Yayoi people arrived from the Korean peninsula, bringing revolutionary changes. Rice
cultivation transformed Japan. Permanent villages grew into small kingdoms. Japanese civilization was taking shape.
Queen Himiko, the shaman queen of Yamatai, appears in Chinese records around 250 CE. The Kofun period saw the construction of massive burial mounds. The Yamato clan was establishing what would become the world's longest continuous monarchy. Listers. In 552 CE, arrived from Korea. This foreign religion would profoundly
Prince Shotoku's constitution of 604 CE blended Buddhist, Confucian and Japanese values.
710 CE. Nara became Japan's first permanent capital. The great Buddha of Todaiji, still standing.
The Heian period produced extraordinary culture. Lady Murasaki wrote the world's first novel, while nobles wrote poetry in Kyoto, a warrior class was rising in the provinces. The samurai, the Genpei War between Minamoto and Taira clans would determine Japan's future. The age of the warrior had truly begun. 1192. Minamoto Yoritomo became shogun. The emperor remained in Kyoto.
1274. Kublai Khan's invasion fleet arrived. Japan faced its first.
The divine wind, Kamikaze Kamon, destroyed the Mongol fleet. Japan saw this as proof of the Ashikaga shogunate brought the warriors back to Kyoto, but their rule was weak. Japan was fracturing into competing power centers.
The Onin War destroyed Kyoto and central authority. Japan shattered into hundreds of warring domains. The age of warring states had begun.
1843, Portuguese traders brought firearms to Japan. Within decades, Japan would have more guns than any European country.
Christianity spread rapidly, gaining hundreds of thousands of converts. Some daimyo converted for faith, others for Portuguese trade and guns.
Nobunaga revolutionized warfare in Japan. He crushed Buddhist armies, used massed firearms, and showed no mercy to enemies.
June 1582. Nobunaga was betrayed by his general, Akechi Mitsuhide.
Hideyoshi, born a peasant, achieved the impossible. He unified all Japan. But his ambitions looked beyond Japan's shores. Hideyoshi invaded Korea, dreaming of conquering China. The invasion would fail catastrophically but would affect Korea for centuries.
October 21, 1600. At Sekigahara, Tokugawa Ieyasu won the battle that would determine.
Ieyasu established a system of such perfect control that Japan would have peace for 2.5 centuries and total isolation.
Japan closed its doors. For over 200 years, Japan would develop in isolation, creating a unique civilization unlike anywhere else.
Under Tokugawa rule, Japan enjoyed unprecedented peace. Cities grew, merchants prospered.
July 8, 1853. Commodore Perry's black ships arrived. Japan's isolation was over.
The unequal treaties were signed at gunpoint. Japan was forced to open ports and grant extraterritoriality to Western powers. Young samurai saw the shogunate's weakness. They rallied around the powerless emperor, planning to overthrow the Tokugawa and modernize Japan. The Boshin War was brief but decisive. The Tokugawa shogunate, after 268 years, the young Emperor Meiji became the symbol of Japan's modernization. Though real power lay with his advisors, his name would define an era.
The Iwakura mission spent 2 years studying the West. They learned everything, from railroads to constitutions, to modernize Japan.
In just 2 decades, Japan transformed from feudal to modern. Rich country, strong military, became the national obsession.
At Tsushima, Japan destroyed the Russian fleet. For the first time in modern history, an Asian nation had defeated a European power.
1910, Japan annexed Korea, beginning 35 years of harsh colonial rule. Japan was now a full imperial power with colonies.
The 1920s brought democracy and liberalism to Japan. But this Taishu democracy would prove fragile against rising militarism.
December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Admiral Yamamoto feared he had awakened a sleeping giant.
For 6 months, Japan seemed invincible, conquering Southeast Asia. But they had overextended against enemies with far greater resources.
June 1942, Midway. 4 Japanese carriers were sunk in minutes. Japan
August 6, 1945, 8:15 a.m. In an instant, Hiroshima ceased to exist. The atomic
August 15, 1945. For the first time ever, the Japanese people heard their emperor's voice.
MacArthur arrived, unarmed, and defeated Japan. The occupation that would transform Japan into a democracy had begun.
Land reform gave farmers their own land, breaking centuries of feudalism. This created the stable middle class that would rebuild Japan.
The Korean War made Japan indispensable to America. The former enemy became a crucial ally, and Japan's economy began to recover. The 1960s, Japan grew faster than any nation in history. From ashes of defeat came an economic superpower.
The 1964 Olympics showed the world a new Japan. Modern, peaceful, prosperous.
At Osaka Expo 1970, Japan presented itself as the future. Technology, efficiency.
The 1980s brought unprecedented wealth. Tokyo real estate was worth more than all America. But bubbles always burst.
1991, the bubble burst. Stock and land prices collapsed. Japan entered the lost decade that would become lost decades. January 17, 1995, Kobe earthquake showed Japan's continued vulnerability to nature, but also its remarkable ability to rebuild and recover.
Japan aged faster than any society in history. By 2000, the demographic crisis was
March 11, 2011, the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami. 20,000 died, and Fukushima became the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl.
The triple disaster of earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear meltdown forced Japan to question its path. Reconstruction continues today.
Modern Japan balances tradition and innovation no other nation. Ancient temples stand.
Japan conquered the world not with armies but with culture. Anime, games, cuisine, Japanese culture became global culture.
Japan faces enormous challenges: aging, depopulation, regional tensions.
The story of Japan continues, written each day by 125 million people on these small islands that change.
Japan's space program represents its modern ambitions, not for conquest, but for sustenance.
The 2020 Olympics, meant to showcase Japan again, became a symbol of global pandemic struggle. Facing the world's most severe aging crisis, Japan turns to robots and AI. Technology might solve what politics cannot. Across rural Japan, villages that existed for centuries are disappearing. The young move to cities, the old
Distance then. For 75 years, Japan's constitution has renounced war. But with China rising and North Korea threatening,
In Okinawa, U.S. bases remain 75 years after the war. The island bears the burden of Japan's security alliance with America.
Whaling represents Japan's struggle between tradition and international pressure. What seems barbaric to some is cultural heritage to others.
Climate change threatens Japan's seasonal culture. Cherry blossoms bloom earlier, typhoons grow stronger, the ancient rhythm of nature is disrupted.
Young Japanese are rejecting their parents' corporate dedication. They seek work-life balance, meaning over money, experiences over possessions.
Japan, historically closed to immigration, now depends on foreign workers. The homogenous society is slowly...
Japan lives in the future high. Robots serve coffee, AI manages traffic, yet fax machines.
Japan's cultural treasures attract millions of tourists. But can ancient temples survive their own popularity? Preservation battles profit.
After Fukushima, Japan seeks energy independence through renewables. But the resource-poor nation struggles to balance ideals with reality.
The Japanese family is transforming. Women demand careers, men learn childcare, traditions adapt to economic necessity. A new generation of entrepreneurs challenges Japan Inc., Can innovation culture grow in consensus society? The future depends on it.
Japan remains surrounded by historical enemies and unresolved disputes. Geography that once protected now complicates every relationship.
Japan achieved what its military never could so: global influence through culture. From Pokemon to sushi,
Master craftsmen have no successors. Traditional skills perfected over centuries may die with this generation. Modernization has its costs. At Shinto shrines, people pray for their robots' success. Ancient gods bless modern technologies.
From Antarctic research to disaster relief, Japan contributes globally through science and aid, not military.
The bullet train racing past Mount Fuji Fuso, Japan's perfect metaphor. Cutting-edge technology speeding past eternal tradition.
Forest bathing, ugyek, Shinrin-yo Kraklang.
Japan lives knowing the next great earthquake will come. This acceptance of nature's power shapes the national character at prepare, endure, rebuild.
Japan has the world's longest lifespans, a triumph that became a crisis. How can shrinking young generations...
Japanese democracy, long dominated by one party, shows signs of change. A new generation questions consensus and demands voice.
Importing 60% of its food, Japan pioneers alternative proteins. Survival drives innovation.
Olympic venues become community centers. Japan learns that true legacy isn't grand monuments, but sustainable community benefit.
Caught between its American security guarantor and its largest trading partner, China, Japan navigates an impossible balance with characteristic pragmatism.
Every Japanese person embodies their nation's dilemma: how to honor the past while embracing the future, maintain identity while adapting to change.
Japan opens universities to international students, hoping they'll become bridges to the world. Education.
Japan looks to space for resources Earth cannot provide. The island nation that once closed itself now reaches for the stars. Buddhist temples enter virtual reality, preserving ancient wisdom in digital form. Japan shows tradition can embrace radical change. Japan experiments with hydrogen-powered cities, seeking carbon neutrality. The nation that industrialized
Hiroshima, first city destroyed by atomic weapons, became humanity's conscience. From ultimate victim to peace's strongest voice.
Robots care for elderly whose children work far away. Technology fills gaps that social change created. Progress has unexpected costs. The tea ceremony, perfected over centuries, now helps stressed executives find peace. Ancient wisdom serves modern needs.
Fishing villages that lived off the sea for millennia face empty oceans. Tradition must yield to sustainability, or both will die.
Thoughtful. Some young Japanese embrace traditional arts, learning from last masters. Not all of old.
Japan, where the sun rises first each day on our planet. From these small islands,